Hi, my name is Ed Breslaw, and I'm the Global Tech Support Manager for the Hayes Bicycle Group, and I'm here to talk to you about the proper setup for suspension. We're going to discuss suspension setup for full suspension and for hardtails. This is a sampling of the technology that Manitou offers in rear shocks. That's important because there's different types of sag setups and different types of way to adjust the preload on these shocks. The very basic one is the radium, and that utilizes just an air pressure setting for the main canister. Then you go to the swinger, which uses the same air canister pressure as a radium, and you'll also notice the red valve, which is for setting up SPV. The newest shock in the line is the Evolver. This is the ISX1. This is an inline shock, and then the ISX3 and 4 and ISX6 are available as well. Once again, this is basically set up just with air pressure. Then you move into another type of shock, which is called a piggyback version with this extra canister. This is the Swinger 4-way. These are meant for a little bit more aggressive style of riding. And once again, this is an SPV shock, so you can set this up with an air valve and with the SPV pressure. Then we move to our coil versions of shocks. The coil shock does not have the air valve. You're basically setting this up similar in theory to a coil preload on a fork. We're adjusting the spring tension on this, and if we can't get the tension correct, then you have to change the actual spring itself to try to meet your criterion. Our newest shock in the coil sprung rear shocks is the Revox, and this is our lightest weight, highest performance, longest travel shock that we make. Once again, set up the same way, no air valve, but you can change the coil, you can change the preload by adjusting this ring right here. This is a coil sprung fork. What that means is that you have a coil spring in the left leg of your fork, which happens to be the left side from the rider's perspective. It's controlled by an adjustable knob on the top, which is what's called the preload adjuster knob. This fork is one of our most popular air sprung forks. It actually consists of a coil spring as a positive spring, and it then uses air for the final ramp up of the fork. This is our newest fork for 2008. It's the MRD version, which is found on both the R7 and the Minute. This is strictly an air chamber. There is no coil spring in this fork at all, and as you notice, the air valve is on the bottom of the fork, which does require you to turn the bike upside down or the fork upside down when you're inflating it or deflating it. These are the tools you're going to need for setting up your suspension. We offer this pump from Manitou. You're going to need something like a scale or a tape measure, preferably in millimeters. You must take note of what type of damping you have on your top of the right side of the fork. You could either have TPC, you could have TPC Plus, you could have a lockout, or the new absolute damper. So you want to make sure that your damping is all the way open. So like in the case of an absolute, you want to make sure that it's all the way forward on the fork. Same thing with a lockout, and if it is a adjustable knob on the top, you want to turn it all the way in the counterclockwise direction until it stops before you set your sag. First thing you want to do is get a zip tie, and zip tie it onto your stanchion leg, is push it all the way down to the dust seal. And that's going to be your gauge for measuring your sag. You want to now get up on the bike. You don't want to bounce, you just want to actually have a seat on the bike in your normal riding position. What we're trying to accomplish here is setting the sag. And sag is how much your fork compresses under the body weight of the rider. Now that you've sat on your bike and compressed the suspension with your body weight, you then want to take a measurement between the dust seal on the fork and the bottom of the zip tie. We measure everything in millimeters, and that's the way it's listed in our service manuals and owner's manuals online at www.manitoumtb.com. Typically, the recommended sag for a cross-country fork is generally in the range of 15 to 20%. 15% of 100 millimeters is basically 15 millimeters. For changing your sag on an air fork, it's really pretty simple. What you want to do is thread the end of your pump onto the Schrader valve, and by increasing your air pressure, you're going to take away sag from your fork, and when you want to increase the sag, you're going to relieve some of the air pressure out of the fork. If you're dealing with a coil sprung fork and you cannot achieve this recommended sag, your next step would be to give the dealer sales guys a call and contact them about getting an alternative ride kit for your bike. Now that you've set up the front end of your bike, we're now going to check the back end. What you want to do, you'll notice that on our rear shocks, we put an O-ring on the damper body. You're going to want to slide that all the way up to the end of the canister. Now we're going to sit on the bike and measure the distance between the end of the canister and where the O-ring is to determine your sag. I hope this explanation on sag clears up a lot of mysteries for you guys. Now you can go out and enjoy the ride.